Hello everyone, Jordan here, and today we have another first impressions video for you guys. Today we'll be looking at SXAirportDesign's Houston Hobby International Airport for Lockheed Martin's Prepared, which is also compatible with FSX, but today we're going to be focusing on the P3D version. This first impressions, if you will be segmented into three parts, or not three parts, just different segments if anything. One where I discuss the positives of the scenery, one I discuss the negatives of the scenery, and kind of my overall final take, if you will, on the scenery. So just as a quick summary of Houston Hobby and its flight sim history. Houston Hobby is a rather large focus city for Southwest Airlines. It was one of the original cities, or original 3 cities, on the cocktail napkin that was part of the founding of Southwest Airlines. Now, as you know, Southwest is one of the world's largest airlines, and this is one of their biggest focus cities. So it's an airport that is used pretty often by them. And honestly, for a good decade, there was not a good Houston Hobby of high payware quality in the FSX or P3D simulators. There was a few photorealistic sceneries that came out, but they're not updated, they're not compatible with this, and oftentimes in P3D they just have issues working properly. The last known version of Houston Hobby, in my opinion, that was really good was in the FS9 era. So the flight sim world has been missing a good Houston Hobby, and SXAirportDesign, excuse me, recently bit the bullet and ended up creating this airport, as they kind of have a history of creating a lot of airports that, aren't as popular or aren't as well sought after in the simulator world. Houston Hobby, as I mentioned though, has gone through a good amount of renovations in the past few years. Recently, they've added an international terminal, which you're looking at right now. And it's one of, like I mentioned previously, one of the largest focus cities for Southwest Airlines, and they have an insane amount of departures for an airport that's relatively small. This airport does coincide with George Bush International, so most of the carriers such as United, American, and Delta all usually fly over at George Bush, whereas Southwest mainly dominates this airport, although JetBlue and American Eagle, I do believe Delta occasionally do fly into here. So yeah, well, that's pretty much it for the summary of this airport. Let's get started with the overview. I'd have to say one of the positives of this scenery is immediately the frame rate. It is insanely high. I'm having absolutely no problems with this scenery. The other day, I made the weather terrible. I turned up all my settings absurdly high and everything else, and the simulator still chugged on strong, and in part probably because of the scenery not having, as much complexity as other sceneries. And this is kind of a bit of a double-edged sword. It's a positive thing on one end, yet on the other end, it can be a negative. But we're going to treat it as a positive for now, and we'll get into that later. But as you can see, the airport is beautifully modeled. It's very accurate to the real airport. I fly through Houston Hobby pretty often in reality, and I have to say, it's really well done. I don't see anything that makes me jump out and say, oh my god, that's unrealistic, get rid of it. So honestly, I think they've done a great job. If we kind of fly up, as you can see, the airport is also very modern, and by modern I mean as in up-to-date compared to the real airport. Oftentimes, sometimes flight sim development groups can miss out on a few details that the real airports have, but these guys, they did the full thing correctly. It's up to date, and it's accurate with the real hobby airport, which I think is amazing. Furthermore, as you can see in the distance over there, the surrounding scenery detail is just really great. United Airlines sometimes stores their aircraft here, like I think when they initially got the MAX 7s, they stored them here for a few days, which I think it's great that they're modeling this much detail and going in through this much work, as well as this large facility with the American flag on top of it, which I always saw when flying over, well, at least landing at this airport. The surrounding scenery, as you can see from over here, there is detail around the airport, which I think is really nice. So it's well built, as in the transition from normal or your Orbx textures or something else. It flows very well with this, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, as you can see from over here, it has a lot of detail in some areas. It has the car parking lot. You can see some wires over here. It's a little hard, and I'm pretty sure if you turned up the aliasing or turned up some settings, these wouldn't look as bad. But as you can see from over there, that's just some of the wires over there. We've got the main parking garage, which is all modeled through, and it's just really nice. It's like, it's not top of the line, but I'm really happy with how this turned out. And I feel like, sometimes we get, I'm okay with this. I'm okay with this, is what I'm really saying. Another thing I like to chime in is that the airport is very up to date and modern. The AFCAT, or AFCAT, excuse me, maps are up to date, they work fine. The SO jetways, I actually really enjoy these jetways, simply because, you know, all the animations work. They make their own custom sound whenever they move to connect to your aircraft, and I'm really pleased with it. I think it's really well done, and I'm just like, I feel like SXAirportDesigns really stepped up their game with this scenery. So yeah, but as you can see how it's connected with this 737-700, you know, the door fits completely over. I parked exactly where GSX wanted me to park, and everything worked out fine. And as you can see from the ground markings, you know, this is exactly what the real airport is like. You know, Southwest is one of the only carriers to fly through here, so these are the markings you see, and I'm really happy that they went through this much detail and time and effort to make sure it's up to date. I'm also a really big fan, for some odd reason, of how well these gates are done, because sometimes we'll see airport developers make a little inaccurate gates. Now, these gates do look a little simple, and I'm going to talk about them a little bit more when I talk about the negatives, but overall, I'm pretty happy with how they turned out. They're not absurdly far off from the real design, and I think that it's close enough. So furthermore, as you can see though, at the international terminal, really liking how well it looks, and we can honestly turn the time to a darker period, if you don't mind. There we go. So I'm going to make it a little darker, and as you can see, just by the way the whole environment, you know, interacts with the scenery, I'm really happy with that. So pretty nice overall, pretty nice. So I just think that, you know, they did an amazing job. And yeah, there's the night light starting to come up there. So here's the night environment, which I think is really nice. Houston Hobby, part of me wants to say it's absurdly bright at night, but half of me also wants to say that this is pretty accurate, because once you start taxing where my mouse is, that's where it starts to light up. So overall, you know, it could be a little bit brighter, but you know, overall, I'm pretty pleased with this. I'm not saying it's terrible. I've seen worse, so you know, it's not bad. And they're charging about 21 euros, which is approximately 23-24 USD, which is not bad. And you can just see how the surrounding environment just like interacts with the scenery. And wow, the night lighting's looking really good right now, actually. That's a shocker. Okay. And it's just like, you know, it interacts great. I really enjoy it. I feel like they did a great job, because this is a relatively small development group, and I feel like they just knocked it out of the ballpark, just overall, if you will. But besides that, I think we can kind of move on to the negatives with this product, which, you know, I'm going to be picky, just a quick heads up. But yeah, because the scenery is really well done, I'm gonna have to be picky in the next segment. So let's begin with the negatives. Okay, so the first negative, if you will, that I have, mostly is just the lack of detail. If you compare this to maybe scenery from Flight Tampa or Flightbeam or even FS Dream Team, even Jviation Design or Jviation Design, I apologize, I cannot pronounce that for my life, but you know what I'm talking about. They add detail internally to the airport. They add, you know, internal airport. And if you saw my Latin VFR airport review for New Orleans, you also can see the literal insane amounts of detail they incorporated for the interior of the airport. Now, what SXAirportDesign did, which is like I mentioned, a double-edged sword, is they just modeled the exterior and did not worry about the interior. They didn't have transparent materials right here. These are just a solid texture right there, which, you know, it's good for saving frames and it's good for performance, but, you know, it kind of kills the immersion a little bit because it's just a texture. Now, I'm being very picky about this. You know, most people don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with it. I'm not gonna say, oh, I can't fly into this airport now. But it is something that, you know, it just takes a little bit away of the immersion. And for $24, you know, usually most flight simulator sceneries are priced around $20 to $30, and in that range, you start to get a little bit, you know, we're kind of expecting a little bit more. But nonetheless, it's not a serious point. It's me nitpicking mostly, but it shouldn't be too much. Another thing, as I mentioned with the jetways, they're accurate, but they could be a little better, if you will. Just as a detail that some scenery developers do, not all the gates are the same. Sometimes the gate design for one section of the airport is one way, whereas another gate on another side of the terminal is different. And I feel like SXAirportDesign could have modeled that, but again, they're looking to save performance. They're looking to have, you know, a no-frills scenery, if anything. I also would have preferred if they put the Southwest Airlines logo right here on the jetways as the real airport does. I feel like it's a small thing, but it really just builds the immersion. If I can, I might honestly go back and try adding the texture myself, because, you know, it's something that I feel like is, you know, if you add that to your airports, it just adds so much realism. So, yeah. Another thing I want to chime in on is the materials back here. It's just, it looks it's respectfully, because these guys did an amazing job, it looks like a $15 to $20 product level of detail, whereas it's 24 seems a bit steep. But again, you know, it's me being picky. Most of this is me being very picky. These guys did a good job, and I'm not really here to say that this is a bad scenery. I would totally recommend this scenery, but what I am kind of implying is that some things could be done better. The textures and the materials could be a little bit better, but overall, it's like, it's not a deal breaker, in my opinion. Another thing I'd like to chime in on right now is the ground textures. They look a little, you know, subpar in terms of texture quality. Again, this is probably to save performance, which it does, but, you know, it's just another thing where it's like, you know, I would have preferred if this was a little better. Now, it's not much of a problem when you're actually on the ground, because, you know, there's grass everywhere. You can't see it from here. There you go. Now you can kind of, if I zoom in like here, as you can see, there's grass everywhere, so that's like not much of a problem. So, you know, when you're taxiing around and everything, you don't really notice it, but when you're flying from above, it's kind of like, ooh, those ground textures could be a little bit better. But, you know, I digress. It's not much. Ooh, to add, not much else. I feel like the runway textures are pretty okay. Oh, quick side note, I was honestly very surprised when I initially saw the runway textures, because I thought it was a glitch in the scenery, and then I realized after researching it that the airport actually is like this, where the runways are kind of like a different design halfway through because of renovations. So, you know, it's pretty nice overall. Most of my complaints or negatives are me just being nitpicky and pulling at straws at the most. It's not a terrible product, it's not really bad or anything. And let me get back over here, and it really performs great for my aircraft and everything, and all. So as you can see right here, I really enjoy it. I'm really happy that we have a scenery like this. Most of my complaints are just, you know, me being nitpicky and me kind of feeling like the price is just a few dollars too high, and by a few dollars I mean like $1 to $3 too high, which is me being absurdly nitpicky. So really, if SXAirportDesign sees this video, don't take it as me saying it's a bad scenery. It's a beautiful scenery. I'm really happy with it, and, you know, mostly what I'm complaining about is small, minuscule things that really shouldn't be much of concern. But with that segment practically done, we can get to my final word. In conclusion, SXAirportDesign's Houston hobby is relatively beautifully done. It's a simple scenery, it's a no-frills scenery package, and the developers are really nice, down-to-earth people who actually take requests and listen to people, which I think is amazing. And they've built an airport that was really well sought after for years. We didn't have a good Houston hobby, and now we do, which is great. I'm really happy that they listened to people and gave us an airport that, you know, it's not as popular really as other big name airports. There are some areas where I feel like the product could be a little bit improved, but again, it's a no-frills scenery package. You know, it's not designed to compete with Fly Tampa or Flightbeam or FS Dream Team. It's, you know, supposed to be their own market where it's, you know, you're spending not as much money as their products, but, you know, you're not getting as high quality, which is completely fine, completely acceptable. The guys, like I mentioned earlier, who made this scenery, they're really nice, down-to-earth people who don't brag saying their sceneries are top of the line, which I feel like is a great thing because, you know, everybody's on the same page and nobody's feeling like, you know, they're kind of scamming us or anything. And as you can see from over there, the wires are kind of acting up just a little bit because I'm looking at them from a distance, so don't worry too much about that. But, you know, just, you know, me sitting in the cockpit right here, I'm going to enjoy this scenery. I'm going to enjoy finally having a good Houston hobby to fly into with my Southwest Airlines routes. I think that they did a great job. I would totally recommend this scenery. They often do sales, and they are very active on their Facebook page, so if you have any questions, concerns, or comments that you'd like to tell them, they'll listen, and I think that's an amazing thing from these guys. But overall, it's just, I'm very happy with this scenery. I think that, you know, could be better in some areas, very small areas, mind you, that I was nitpicky about, but nonetheless, that's pretty much it. I'm very happy with the scenery, and, you know, it's just, I'm out of words here. It's great. Anyways, if you guys have enjoyed this relatively short first impressions, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Smack the like button for more flight sim content such as this, and don't forget to subscribe. Anyway, I'm Jordan. See you in the next episode.